Wants to be great, stand up right now. Whoever wants to be great, stand up. Excellent. Now repeat after me. Repeat after me. If you want to be great and successful,
you want to be great and successful,
you must walk hand in hand.
You must walk hand in hand,
Side by side. With great and successful people.
With great and successful people.
All right, have a seat. All I did for about 7 years of my life is attempt and try to find out what makes the great great. That's all I ever did. When I left Northwestern University in 1984 with a PhD in hand, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I certainly knew what I didn't want to do. I did not want to teach. I did not want to go into corporate America. I didn't want to go to the foreign service like many of my colleagues. I guess sort of subconsciously I wanted to find out the keys to success. So I carved out a list initially of about 40 people that I was going to meet and interview, and notice at point blank range trying to find the keys to success. That list of 40 swelled to almost 100. And all I wanted to do was find out what makes the great great. And I'm just here to tell you some of the things. When I asked Don King what makes the great great, Don King says if you overfill your place, people will come see you. If you set yourself on fire, the world will come see you burn. What makes the great great? When I interviewed Mae Jemison, the first black woman in space, I said, Dr. Jemison, what is success? She said, success is lifestyle. Life is God's gift to you. Style is what you do with it. What makes the great great? When I interviewed Ben Carson, arguably black America's #1 neurosurgeon, Dr. Carson said to me, he said, think big, think stretch, think global, think quantum leaps. By all means, think. And that is the key. What makes the great great? Have you found it? Percy Sutton of Inner City Broadcasting said to me, he said, young man, if you have but one wish, let it be for a dream. What makes the great great? Henry Parks of Parks Sausage said to me, he said, young man, in one hand I have a dream, in the other hand I have an obstacle. Which one grabs your attention? What makes the great great? The few moments that I had with Reverend Knight, he said to me, he says, I know the key to greatness. I said, Reverend Knight, what is it? He said, mind your own business. I said, Reverend Knight, you want to run that by me again? I said, yeah. He said, mind your own business. Bob Johnson of BET said to me, I said, Mr. Johnson, what is success? What is greatness? He said, life is a grindstone. Whether it grinds you down or polishes you up depends on what you are made of. I asked Louis Farrakhan, I said, Minister Farrakhan, what is wealth? He said, poor is the man who all he has is money. What makes the great great? And then I came full circle to Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson says you may not be responsible for getting knocked down, but you're certainly responsible for getting back up. What makes the great great? Well, in short, it's a sense of destiny, as Peter Daniels say. It is a sense of destiny. And anybody can have a sense of destiny by following 5 keys. Number 1, focus on that which you desire most. Number 2, emulate somebody that you can admire. Number 3, develop a gratitude attitude. Give thanks for the things that you do have. Don't worry about the things that you don't. Number 4, recognize that strength grows out of struggle. And last but not least, dedicate yourself to lifelong learning. Readers are leaders. The average black male in American society spends more than $500 on the outside of his head. Haircuts, shaves, dental work, but spends less than $50 a year on the inside of his head. And I applaud everyone here today. Readers are leaders. All you are is a mental being. All causation is mental. Everything happens to you twice in life. First the inner, then the outer. First the thought, then the thing. First the mental, and then the physical. And to the extent that you control what goes on the inside of your life, you'll control what goes on the outside of your life. Readers are leaders. You can be, have, or do anything you want in this society, and I tell people, do not become a know-it-all. Don't have preconceived notions. It's like the story of 3 men who are about to be executioned. And each one of them were granted one last word to say before they were about to be guillotined to death. The first one to approach the chopping block is a doctor. The doctor puts his neck on the chopping block, and the executioner says, Doctor, do you have any last words? And the doctor says, yes. Physician, heal thyself. Right then the guillotine blade comes down and stops 2 inches from the doctor's neck. Everybody out in the audience says, surely this is a sign from above. This man is innocent. Let him go free. The next one to approach the chopping block was a priest. The executioner says to the priest, he says, Father, do you have any last words? And the priest says, yes, keep the faith. Right then the guillotine blade came down and stopped 1 inch from the priest's neck. Everybody out in the crowd says, surely this man is innocent. Let him go free. The last person to approach the chopping block was a know-it-all. And the executioner says, sir, do you have any last words? And the know-it-all says, yes. If you tighten the 2 bolts on the left, the guillotine will work as planned. Don't be a know-it-all. The information is there. The material is there. Focus on your God-given talents. Use this billion-dollar brain, this mind that you have, and use it for your own personal good. You see, the Bible says the first shall be last and the last shall be first. We in the black community have been trained to believe. You go to any pastor and you say, Pastor, what does that mean? The first shall be last and the last shall be first. Well, the pastor will say, well, that's living proof that black America will one day be first. All these years we've been last, but one day, if you read it right here in the Bible, we shall be first. Well, it doesn't mean that. The first shall be last and the last shall be first doesn't mean that at all. You see, we live in a consciousness that says, I will not believe it till I see it. In other words, when you show me the physical, then I'll believe it. The Bible says put that last. See, the physical, which is first, will now become last. And the mental, which is last, will now become first. You see with your mind's eye. You get a dream, a vision, something that you want to do, and you see it with your mind's eye because your physical eye will lie to you. I interviewed scores of achievers. You name it. I spent a day with Al Sharpton. I spent a day with Don King, Susan Taylor of Essence Magazine, Mae Jemison, Percy Sutton, you name it, and I had the pleasure to talk to that individual, and I found 4 common chords no matter who I interviewed. Number 1, they dreamed big dreams. They had a dream, a plan, a vision, something they wanted to accomplish so desperately with their life. Number 2, they were inner-directed versus outer-directed. In other words, they didn't live life at the circumference, they lived life at the center. And they weren't so quick to believe well-meaning friends or family who said, you can't do this or you can't do that. See, that's what Robert Frost meant in his poem, 2 roads diverged in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by. You are unique. You cannot succeed being like everybody else. You must take that lonely road. And that's why I have in my book that the opposite of success is not failure. The opposite of success is conformity. So many times we conform to the wishes, the norms, and the mores of others. Number 3, these individuals flat out refuse to be average. They committed themselves to personal excellence. Now again, you can be, have, or do what you want in this society, but I tell people, don't be average. See, average is worst of the best, it's best of the worst. It's top of the bottom, bottom of the top. Society remembers the achiever. Society will even remember the man or woman who fell short of the mark, but nobody remembers the man or woman who is average. And when you die, they'll put on your tombstone, here lies somebody that's just average. And last but not least, these individuals flat out refuse to fail. I'm not saying that they didn't fail. Many times they actually failed their way to success, but no one was going to stop them. And again, going back to my book, that's why I say that success is a statistical event. That's all it is. When you encounter your setbacks, when you encounter your adversities or that thing that sets you back, do not personalize your failure. And failure is never failure until it is accepted as such. And one way that you can overcome any failure, one way that you can ensure that you will rally forth and redouble your efforts, is that when you hit that setback, when you hit that adversity, ask yourself, what can I do better next time? Success is a statistical event. Why am I Dr. Kimbro? Because I'm smarter than you guys? No. I got a PhD because I got more college hours than you have. When you get the same number of college hours I have, you'll have a PhD too. You doubt that? See, I interviewed Marva Collins in Chicago, and I asked Marva, I said, Marva, if I put you under a microscope, what is the 1 or 2 things that I would find out over and over in your character? You know what she told me? She says, I learn 15 new vocabulary words a day. Now, I can take a high school dropout from inner city Oakland, and for 5 years, teach that individual 15 new vocabulary words a day. And after 5 years, they may not be Marva Collins, But I guarantee you, they'll either be on somebody's college campus or in somebody's high school, either teaching English, literature, or reading whatever. Success is a statistical event. The average individual in our lifetime, or the average individual in society, gets 4 ideas a year. Any one of which, if they had the guts, the courage, the fortitude to follow them through, would make that person financially independent. So why don't we do it? Well, a whole host of things. Low self-image. You know, we don't believe in ourselves. Lack of faith. I'm here to tell you that anybody, it's not a question of can you succeed, it's a question of will you succeed. And that's it in a nutshell. That's all success is. That's all I ever did. When I left school, I didn't want to become a top surgeon. I didn't want to become a president of a firm. I didn't want to go to the moon, fly to the moon like Mae Jemison. All I ever wanted to do was to position myself in a position where if there was anybody in the United States, in the 48 contiguous states or throughout the country, anybody who wanted to know anything about blacks, success, wealth, achievement, or leadership, they had to call me. And that's all I ever did. That's all I ever did. It took me 6 years to write the book. 6 years to write the book. And I wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for my lovely wife, Pat. Pat, stand up. See, I don't mind telling you the truth. I mean, if it wasn't for her, I'm just telling you the way it is. If it wasn't for her, I would not be standing here. 6 years it took me to write the book. When I started interviewing these achievers, I guess I'd interviewed about 20 of them. And W. Clement Stone of the Napoleon Hill Foundation caught wind of what I was doing. Now, who is Napoleon Hill? Napoleon Hill is arguably the #1 success, motivational, inspirational writer that this country has ever produced. If you took Napoleon Hill and put him in a foot race with all the men and women who you see out on the circuit today, if you put him in a mile foot race, get them all, line them up, put him in a mile foot race with Napoleon Hill, by the time Napoleon Hill crossed the finish line, he would be so far out in front, if he turned over his shoulder, he couldn't even tell you who's in second place. Napoleon Hill was a white gentleman born in utter poverty in Virginia who carved out a very illustrious speaking and writing career for himself. He wrote 16 books. 6 of his books are still on the market today. His all-time 2 bestsellers, his first one was called Laws of Success, but in the 1930s he published Think and Grow Rich. At last count, that book has sold more than 16 million copies. More than 250,000 blacks have read the original Think and Grow Rich and use it as a springboard in their life. The last thing Napoleon Hill ever attempted to do in 1970 was to write a black version of Think and Grow Rich. He gets 100 pages into the manuscript and he dies of a stroke. He is 83 years old. Those 100 pages sat on the desk of W. Clement Stone for 16 years until I walked into his office. Now, who is W. Clement Stone? W. Clement Stone is the president of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. In the 1970s, he was the wealthiest individual in the world. He was #1 on the Forbes 400 richest list. And he caught wind of what I was doing. He called me up and he says, "Young man, when can you come to Chicago? I'd like to meet you." My wife and I flew to Chicago, met W. Clement Stone. And prior to that, I told Mr. Stone, I said, you know, he asked me why I got involved in this project, why I was going around the country interviewing successful black achievers. And I said, Mr. Stone, I wanted to find the answers to 2 questions. Question number 1, why does one man or woman fail while another succeeds? And question number 2, why is one individual rich and wealthy while another is impoverished? And at that time, W. Clement Stone said to me, he says, well, based on what we see and hear, we want you to push your book aside and we want you to finish this book. And I said, what book? And that's when he placed in my hands the last 100 pages written by Napoleon Hill. And I looked at it, and I looked at Mr. Stone, and I said, well, I can't finish this book. He said, why not? I said, well, I want to finish my book. He said, put your book aside. And I said, second of all, I can't finish this book. And he says, why not now? And I said, well, I don't have any money. I said, I'll finish it under one condition. If you pay me, if you give me some type of financial inducement, if you underwrite me, then I'll finish the book. And then W. Clement Stone said something to me I'll never forget. He said, young man, if you really want to find out the answers to the question why one person fails and another succeeds, if you really want to find out the answer to the question why one person is rich and wealthy while another is impoverished, it is in this laboratory that you must find it. He said, no, I'm not going to pay you. And for 6 or 7 years, I crisscrossed the nation. I was hit with every type of financial situation, you name it, I was hit with it. Didn't lose one car, lost 2. Couldn't begin to tell you how many times my water, gas, electricity was cut off. So I just showed you I had a wife and 3 kids that I had to care for. See, the Bible says it came to pass, not it came to stay. So I think I'll just stop my little talk right here and open it up for Q&A and use that as a springboard. If anybody has any questions, we'll just take off from there. Yeah.
What do you comments now with the passing of Reginald Lewis, who earlier this week was one of the richest black men in Americans? You hear about Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, and he certainly got as America's richest individual. He certainly ranks the top spot this year. But the passing of Reginald Lewis certainly is a milestone that not only Black History Month, certainly went out with the win. No headlines. He was best title was he was former CEO of BFS. No milestone about being the richest black man in America.
Well, they had a nice piece in USA Today. They had a couple of pieces in Wall Street Journal. I was interviewed by a writer from the Gannett Services about the same question. As a matter of fact, I was in Denver and I had a phone interview. Reg Lewis is one of the few individuals who I did not get a chance to interview. Very private man. I tried for more than 2 years to get through his lieutenants. The closest I got to Reg Lewis, I had a lengthy conversation with his director of communications, and I did have a nice conversation and an interview with a gentleman up in New York who helped Reg Lewis put together the deal. I just asked him the mechanics of the deal. Very private individual. It's a real-life tragedy that we didn't get to enjoy some of the fruits of what Reg Lewis did. But Reg Lewis was not the first one to put together a leverage buyout. That honor goes to Bruce Llewellyn. The first leverage buyout in the United States was by a black man, Bruce Llewellyn, in the 1970s with Fedco Foods. An interesting anecdote, I did get a chance to spend some time with Bruce Llewellyn, who was arguably one of the wealthier people in the United States. But here is a black man, Bruce Llewellyn, before I get more on Reg Lewis, who came within an eyelash of owning the New York Yankees. See, years ago when Fay Vincent ascended to the position of commissioner of baseball, it didn't take Fay Vincent any time to throw George Steinbrenner of the Yankees out of baseball. Steinbrenner's coming back in March. The day after, Fay Vincent tells George Steinbrenner of the Yankees to pack his bags, Bruce Llewellyn calls his secretary into his office. Secretary takes down the following letter, takes the letter, puts it in a FedEx envelope. FedEx is the envelope to George Steinbrenner. George Steinbrenner gets the FedEx envelope the next day, pulls out the letter, and the letter reads, "Dear George, write any dollar figure you want in the enclosed check. I must own the Yankees." Y'all didn't hear what I said. Dear George, write any dollar figure you want on the enclosed check. I must own the Yankees. Steinbrenner says, no, they're not for sale. But getting back to Reg Lewis, one thing Reg Lewis did do, he was a paragon for business excellence for us. Here's a guy, went to Virginia State. From Virginia State, he specifically went to Harvard to study under a law professor by the name of Lewis Loss. Lewis Loss is an expert in leverage buyouts, LBOs. And see, Reg Lewis had a plan. He went to Harvard to study under the best, and he was going to take what he had and use it. He was going to take the knowledge that he was going to gain from Harvard and put it in action. So, you know, we have other capable leaders, particularly entrepreneurs, And it is up to us, I guess, riders like myself, or every chance that we can get, to shine and let that light on these individuals where they can pass along this baton called success. See, you ask any track coach who has coached a relay race, the track coach will tell you that a relay race is either won or lost in the swift interchange it takes to pass the baton. In that swift interchange it takes to pass the baton between runner and runner, that will make up the critical difference of the race. Now, Black America has many swift and capable runners. Lane number 1, we got Oprah Winfrey. In lane number 2, we got John Johnson. In lane number 3, we got Earl Graves. In lane number 4, we got Inesta Proco. Black men and women who have run the race of their lives, all right? Who have run the race of their lives. They've come around the turn, they're coming down the straightaway, they're holding this baton called success and achievement, and we just have to make sure that there is another generation that is fit and focused in those lanes to take that baton. Hopefully, in the 50 years that Reggie Lewis was here, we were able to do that.
I have a little simple, stupid question.
Yeah, no question is stupid. Unless I ask my wife for money. Yeah, I asked my wife for money. I said, Pat, give me some money. She said, I gave you $1 last week. What you do? I know, can't take me anywhere. Go ahead.
Okay, you gave me another one. But my question is, and I like your book and always say, think, okay?
That's right.
Think big.
That's right.
I really do. I think really big and crazy. I think, but then I don't know how to do it. I think I want to be famous.
Okay.
But then I always sit back and wonder, my dream is, like, I want to show for all famous people. And
Yeah.
God has been opening that door for me. Like Gorbachev, Mandela, Jesse Jackson. I've met all of these people. But then I want to be famous. And I would like to write a book about, I don't know. How do you begin?
Well, it sounds like you're trying to find your area of excellence. And there's four keys that you can use to find your area of excellence. Number 1, ask yourself these 4 critical questions in order to find your area of excellence. Number 1, ask yourself, what is it that I love to do?
I love to drive.
Okay.
I really do. I love children.
What is it that I love to do? What do I have a passion for? What can I throw my whole heart and soul
I
into?
should do that for free.
Yeah, question number 2. That's question number 2. Ask yourself, what would I do for free? What would I do without financial reward? What would I do without financial remuneration? Because when you're doing what you love to do, and you would do it for free, your work is your play. And if your work is your play, you'll never work a day in your life. See, the 2 times I interviewed John Johnson, I noticed him at point blank range, and I couldn't tell when he was working and when he was playing. You see, it was totally symmetrical. I couldn't tell. Question number 3, ask yourself, what comes easy to me but difficult to somebody else? What do I do so effortlessly and so flawlessly? As Oprah Winfrey says, it's like breathing. And we all have these areas and these zones. And question number 4, ask yourself, or ask your friends, your family, your neighbors, what do you see me as? What do you think I would be good at doing? You answer those 4 questions openly and honestly, you'll have identified your area of excellence. Now, here's the good news. The market pays superior rewards for superior performance. Any other questions?
How do you get to that superior performance? I mean, you have the idea. You know what you want to do. You might know how to get there, and you might not. How do you get that push, that drive? How do you go from one place to another blindly? Not necessarily not seeing, but I mean, just this is the way I have to go.
Yeah.
This is the way I have to go. I have to do it.
Well, I mean, first of all, you don't get involved in anything that you can't be excellent at it.
Right.
You don't get involved in anything that you can't be excellent at it. See, when you are excellent at what you are doing, you never have to worry about employment. You never have to worry about an income if you are excellent at what you're doing. If you are number 1 in your field, the market will seek you out. If you are number 1. I mean, for 6 or 7 years, I crisscrossed this country and I couldn't find a job with a roadmap. I mean, I did anything. I mean, one year I lived in Atlanta. One year I couldn't find any work in Atlanta while I'm engaged in this project. The only job I could find is in Chicago. And for 1 year, I lived in Chicago completely away from my family. And every other Friday when my boss from the consulting firm gave me my check, I put it in the mail and sent it back to my family. But now you become excellent at what you're doing, people seek you out. I mean, I can hit up with scores of opportunity. Scores of opportunity. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, but how do you get into a position where people can see it?
Okay, I see what you're saying right now. It goes back to that age-old adage where practice makes perfect. Except that adage is wrong. Practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you're practicing anything but perfection, you're perfecting an error. So you set a goal, and when you take action on that goal, step back from that goal and ask yourself, how is my aim? How is my aim? If you set a goal to hit that bullseye and you throw the dart over here, you step back and you measure the difference. That's why I say in my book that your goals must be conceivable, goals must be believable, goals must be achievable, and last but not least, goals must be measurable, because what gets measured gets done. What gets measured gets done. And you should make sure that you keep your goals in front of you at all times. I mean, you're sitting here listening to me right now. If I was to break in any of your homes or your apartments, I'm going to ask you this question to throw it out. I'm just playing devil's advocate. Smile! Oh, no, why did you pick me, man? I didn't do that. I knew I shouldn't have come. You're here listening to me now, right? If I broke into your home or apartment, okay? And suppose I decided to shave in the same mirror that you put your makeup on every morning, would I see your goals? Yeah. If I reach for a glass of water in your icebox where you may keep your bacon and eggs or whatever, would I see your goals? If I took off my jacket in the same closet that you take off your blouse or whatever, would I see your goals? If I got tired and slept in your bed on the same side that you sleep on and rolled out the same side you roll out every morning, what would be the first thing that I would see? Would I see your goals? So what thou seest, that thou beest. And that's all I had. When times got difficult, I leaned on my dreams. When people slammed the door in my face, I would just think about my dreams over and over and over and over again. When they cut my water off or take my car and tell me, hey, this won't work and that won't work, hell, I would go down to the bookstore. I went down to B. Dalton's bookstore in Atlanta, Georgia, and asked for my book years before it was finished. I had a bad day, somebody kicked me in my mouth, and I would do that routinely. Go down to B. Dalton's bookstore and ask for my book. Go up to the desk and I asked the manager, I said, do you have that book? It's about blacks and achievement, and she would say, who's the author? And I said, some guy named Kimbro, and she would go to books and print and look it up and couldn't find it there. Then she would go to the microfiche and couldn't find it there. Then she would look on her computer, and a couple times they even called Ingram in Nashville, Tennessee, the distributor. She said, now who's the author? I said, some guy named Kimbro. She said, are you sure about the title? I said, yeah, the book is #1. It's taking the country by storm. Everybody has it. You know what I'm saying? And I did that several times. 2-3 years before the book came out. And don't you know, when the book came out, I had a very, very, very successful book signing in that same bookstore. And it was a book, and the author's name is Kimbro, and it is a bestseller, and everybody has it. So I don't care what others say. It's what you say. The most important conversation you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. I can't control what the rest of these guys are going to do. I can't control that. The only thing I can control is what goes on in here. And I can live my life in advance. That's all it is. All you are is a blank sheet of paper in the mind of the Creator. You come into this existence with 2 words. Our Creator gives us 2 words, I am, and leaves it up to you to fill in the blanks. Some folks say I am rich. Some folks say I'm healthy. Some folks say I'm prosperous. Some folks say, hey, I am wonderful, whatever. And then you got a whole contingent of other folks say, hey, I am downtrodden. I am down and out. I am poor. I'm impoverished. You fill in the blanks. Our Creator doesn't know who's rich and who's poor. Our Creator doesn't know if John Johnson's worth $150 million and T. Boone Pickens and Ross Perot are billionaires and some poor black woman in Oakland is, trying to put an existence together. Our Creator doesn't know that. The only thing our Creator knows is the thoughts that you send out. And you can put anything that you want. See, that's what's meant in the Bible by Judgment Day. The Bible tells you Judgment Day. We've been taught Judgment Day. If we've been good, we go to some place called heaven. If we've been bad, the Creator pulls a trap door on us and we go to hell. That's not Judgment Day. Judgment Day is the day in which all your thoughts become things. If you want a different Judgment Day, to think different thoughts. Right now, this is my Judgment Day because I thought these different thoughts.
question about how you begin writing a book.
How I began?
You know, like if a person wants to write a book, like you know what
You want to write? You want to write? Then write every day. You write every day.
Okay.
You write every day.
Okay.
You write every day. And you can ask Pat, she's sitting right next to you. There's times I sat at my computer, and I got 3 computers at home. And I would sit at that computer, and sometimes the ideas did not come. And when I'm writing, like I got a deadline now, I got a book coming out in November in which I got to edit some things on, and I'm just praying the ideas come. Because it's not a pretty sight being in the house with me with no ideas coming. Pat can tell you that. I mean, there was one time on this meditation book, or several times in the meditation book, the ideas just didn't seem to flow. And one time I got up out of the bed at 3:30 in the morning, and Pat heard all this rustling. And she said, "Man, what are you doing?" She cut the light on, and she says, "You're on your knees praying for an idea, aren't you?" I said, "That's right." Write every day. Writing means rewriting. You want to be a writer? You're a writer. You surround yourself with the image of yourself. Why is my book a bestseller? Because I did one thing right? No. My book is a bestseller because I did 90 things right. Besides interviewing all these black achievers, I interviewed 6 best-selling authors, asking them, how do you write a bestseller? I interviewed Charles Garfield, who wrote Peak Performers. I interviewed Harvey Mackay. I interviewed George Gilder, who wrote Spirit of Enterprise. I interviewed Robert Shook. All best-selling authors. And I asked them, how do you write a bestseller? And they told me, and I put it all down on a piece of paper, and I just did it. You see, Booker T. Washington says success always leaves footprints. Booker T. Washington said success always leaves footprints. It's not rocket scientry. You surround yourself with the image of yourself, and you never ever take advice from anybody who's not in life where you want to be. Would you? I was on a radio talk show, and I don't know what town it is, and the guy says, "Anybody have any questions for Dr. Kimbro?" And this guy called up and said, "Yeah, I got a question for the doctor. I want to be a millionaire." And I said, "That's easy. Take a millionaire to lunch." He said, "Well, why should I take a millionaire to lunch? He's a millionaire. He ought to take me to lunch." I said, No. See, you take the millionaire to lunch to find out what the millionaire knows. Millionaire doesn't even know what you know. He's already been broke. You need to find out what he knows. Any other questions?
What are the steps that you have a goal that you work and financially saying I have this goal and I'm trying to reach it, but it's, to you it feels like it's taking forever to reach that goal?
Well, I don't know what it's going to take for you to reach your mission, but if you're not in life where you want to be, or you're not in life where you need to be, it's because of one thing and one thing only. Your goals are not clearly defined. That is it. That is it. There's black men and women that came from dire circumstances. I mean, when I heard some of these stories, see, I'm not telling anybody in this room that you got to become a Rhodes Scholar like Bonnie St. John in Los Angeles, and you have to do it on one leg. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not telling anybody in this room they got to become a Booker T. Washington. How old was Booker T. Washington when he founded Tuskegee? 24. What were you doing at 24? And he went door to door. Booker T. Washington went door to door and raised $6 million. I'm not telling you to do that. You see what I'm saying? I'm not telling you you got to go through the nonsense that John Johnson went through to start Negro Digest that became Ebony. I mean, when I interviewed that guy and I went to S.B. Fuller's offices in Chicago, they told me that John Johnson Fuller was Johnson's mentor. He used to come into Fuller's offices darn near crawling on his knees, crying to Fuller, "No one's buying the magazine. Mr. Fuller, I did what you told me to do and it just ain't working." Fuller said, "Shut up, man. Go out there and sell the things." See, A.G. Gaston did the same thing to me. After I got through spending a day with A.G. Gaston, tears just came out of my eyes because of my financial situation. And I was cutting off my tape recorder and putting my papers into my briefcase, and Mr. Gaston said, "Young man, what in the world is wrong?" And I told him all the things that I said. "Mr. Gaston, I wouldn't blame my wife if she left me. I don't have any money and this and that." So he hands me a Kleenex from behind his desk. He He says, tell me when you're through. I'll tell you when I'm through. You didn't hear what I said, Mr. Johnson. He said, young man, he says, that the successful individual must be tested in the furnace of adversity. Fear not, young man. Keep doing what you're doing. But if you are satisfied with where you are in life, then step aside for the man who isn't. Brother, I straightened up. Any other questions?
I wanted you to,
Mo better!
I was wondering if you could comment on risk aversion in the black community. Any suggestions on strategies on how we might minimize?
Well, sometimes it's risky not to take a risk. See what I'm saying? Sometimes it's risky not to take a risk. I mean, life is risk and reward. Just coming here is one risk. I mean, you can't escape risk. It's how you look at it. You see what I'm saying? Is there a risk aversion? I choose to say not, particularly in the black community. Okay? But there's loads of opportunity. I mean, life is one big risk. And all success is, all opportunity is the creator knocking on your subconscious asking you if you want more. But you must have faith. You must step out there on faith. All my neighbors laughed at me. All. I had a 1981 beat-up Datsun 510. It was silver when we bought it, turned gray, faded. We used to go to cocktail parties with our neighbors, and everybody would huddle in the kitchen. They would say, what's gray and black and lies in the grass? And I was so stupid, I say, what? He said, you don't call. He ain't laughing now. Life is one big risk. You must have faith. Two types of faith. Faith in self, faith in others. See what I'm saying? Faith in self, faith in others. And what I found out from the achievers that I interviewed, the faith that we so blindly entrust in others, they keep for themselves. For instance, I flew from Atlanta to Denver to San Francisco, right? When I got on the plane, I didn't go into the cockpit of the airplane to see if the pilot had his license to take this thing off and land it. No, I put faith in him. Sometimes I question that faith. We hit some turbulence. I'm staying at the Oakland Park Hotel or whatever. We stay on the 20th floor, right? Get out in the elevator and go up the 20th floor. You know, I have the faith that the elevator is going to take us up there. I don't call the hotel and see, what's the last thing this thing's been checked out? You see, that's faith that I have that I'm putting in somebody else. We all have that faith. All high-achieving men and women, they keep that faith for themselves. Like Walter Turnbull, the Harlem Boys Choir, he said, no, I'll pull this off. It took him 25 years. I asked Walter Turnbull what is success. He said, hearing the voices of my men. And that brother is mentally tough. It's so quiet in school, you can go in there and just hear grass growing. As soon as you walk in the Harlem Boys Choir, their head offices, he's got a big sign. Hats off. Discipline is the key. Next question.
It just sounds like you have a lot of spiritual beliefs and you believe in God.
Yeah.
And you mentioned faith. Did you find that as you interviewed other successful people also believe in God?
Oh man, there were times that I thought I was in church with some of these folks. And like I said, I spent a day without Sharp, and I didn't get that feeling from him. But I certainly got that feeling from Susan. No, I'm being honest. I'm not saying that he isn't. I just, he was, he liked to have a good time. But with Susan Taylor, with A.G. Gaston, with, George Johnson, Johnson Products. Woo! Man, Wally Amos. Who else? Oh, of course, Ben Carson.
Did you interview Bill Cosby as well?
I was on Bill Cosby's show, and I got a chance just to ask him a few questions. I mean, he's surrounded by a sea of lieutenants. But Bill Cosby is very funny. I mean, just the little time that I had with him, I just got a feeling. He just, he applauded what I was doing. He told me to keep on going. And just a very nice guy. Speaking with George Halsey of Amway. Was another quick George Halsey story. Spent a day with him in North Carolina and talk about spiritual, okay? Very spiritual individual, and he just had something that he just wanted to give back to the community. And so He took me out to lunch, and we were coming back from lunch. We drove through the sort of seedy part of Greensboro, North Carolina. And there were some brothers hanging out on the street, drinking wine. It was a work day. It was, I don't know, it was either a Monday through Friday or something like that. And so I said, Mr. Halsey, I said, what's going through your mind when you see this? And he says, if I could just have 5 or 10 minutes with each of them, man, just let them, explain to them that it's a better way. You see what I'm saying? Like this. So at the end of the day, I'm wrapping my stuff up and I'm collecting my papers, and I had my coat off. I was relaxed. And as I was leaving, I said goodbye to George's wife, Ruth, and I said goodbye to his kids, and I had my jacket slung over my shoulder, and I shook hands with Mr. Halsey and said, thank you for, allowing me to come in your life and interview you and spend this time with you. And I'm walking out the door, George Halsey says, oh yeah, young man, I just got one request. And I said, sure, Mr. Halsey, whatever I can do. He says, don't quit. And so I had my jacket over my shoulder, and cavalierly, I just turned around and said, oh, Mr. Halsey, you don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to quit. That guy got up from his desk, walked up to me, grabbed me by the lapels, and I said, man, don't quit. We need this message. I said, I'm not going to quit. That type of inner power that they want to give to somebody, that type of thing. So. Last but not least, yes.
What are you going to talk about tomorrow?
Huh?
What are you going to speak about tomorrow at the Scott?
I'm going to speak about the 4 major principles of success. See, Napoleon Hill came up with 17 surefire principles of success, but he tells you that the first 4 are more important than anything else. Definiteness of purpose, mastermind, applied faith, and going the extra mile. Some interesting and fascinating stories. There's nothing to fear. You're as good as the best, as strong as the mightiest team. You can pass any battle or test, for there's no one just like you. There's only one you in the world today, so nobody else you see can do your work in just a fine way. You're the only you'll to be. There's nothing to fear. You can and you will, for you're the invincible you. So set your foot on the highest hill. There's nothing you cannot do.
Great.
Thank you.